Hello. Those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Haley, and today I wanted to talk about child and teen depression. I was diagnosed with depression when I was 12, and so I have some firsthand experience of what it's like to be a child and teenager with depression. And I recently had a friend ask me if I knew that I was depressed or if it was something that my parents figured out. And I thought that was a great question because depression in children and teenagers can be very hard to diagnose. It can be really hard to decipher the difference between whether or not it's just a angsty teenager or actually dealing with depression. So I wanted to go into that a little bit today. Recently, Mott's Children's Hospital conducted a nationwide poll, and they found that 40% of parents had a hard time distinguishing the difference between mood swings and depression in teens. So this is my firsthand experience with childhood and teen depression. When I was 12 and I first started showing signs of depression, I knew I was sad. I knew that I didn't want to do things that I normally got pleasure in. I didn't want to play with my friends, do social things that I was normally interested in, but that's as far as I understood. I wasn't mature enough to make the connection that something had changed. I wasn't asking for help. I just knew that I didn't feel happy anymore. One example of that was my family decided to go to a movie at the movie theaters, and the movie was A Knight's Tale. I remember it like it was yesterday, with Heath Ledger, and everybody was really excited to see this movie, and I cried and cried because my mom was making me go. She was trying to get me out of the house and to do something fun, and I did not want to go, and I was so mad at her. And that's not normal behavior for a 12-year-old, and it wasn't normal behavior for me. And I actually ended up loving the movie, and every time I see a clip of that movie or watch the movie to this day, I think about this experience though, and how hard it was for me to go to that movie, and how I should have known, but as a 12-year-old, again, I wasn't mature enough to make the connection that I should want to go to the movie theater, and I didn't want to leave the house, and I did not want to do things that I normally really enjoyed. So as my depression got worse, this was in the beginning of 7th grade, there was a girl in my class who committed suicide. And this is hard for me to talk about, but it was hard on all of us, on all of the kids in the class. It was our first experience with suicide, and that really made my depression worse. So after some time, I stopped going to school. My mom would pull up to drop me off, and I refused to get out of the car. I would just cry and beg my mom, please don't make me go. And at first, she didn't know what to do. She didn't know how to get me out of the car. She didn't know if this was a phase and just going through a hard time because of my classmate's death. But she didn't make me go to school. But after about the 3rd day of this routine, my poor mom just sat in the car with me and cried because she didn't know what to do for her daughter, and I didn't know what to do, and it broke my heart watching my mom in pain, but I was in pain as well. And so fortunately, we had options, and my mom was intuitive enough to know that steps needed to be taken that this wasn't going away on its own, and it was her responsibility to put those wheels in motion. So the first thing that my mom did was she met with the school counselor. The school counselor was really helpful. We explained to him what was going on, and they were able to arrange for my schoolwork to be able to be brought home. My mom would pick it up, and I was able to keep up with the class at home, almost like a school to home program. And then the next step was to take me to the doctor, and I didn't know what to expect. I was only 12. I wasn't afraid of the doctor, but I was anxious about it. I, again, didn't know what to expect. So we went to the doctor, and the doctor had questions to ask to help him decipher the difference between an angsty preteen who was moody and whether or not I actually was struggling with depression at such a young age. I was struggling with being bullied in school. I was dealing with the beginning changes that happen that come with puberty and anxiety about school, but other things that you normally see in depression weren't symptoms that I was having. I wasn't having trouble sleeping. I wasn't sleeping not enough or too much. And so anybody could look at these things and say, oh, she's not struggling with depression. She's dealing with a handful of things that are stressful for a 12-year-old. But the truth was I actually was dealing with depression. And so that's where the doctor was able to tell the difference. He had insightful questions that he asked me, and by answering honestly, he was able to see that this wasn't just, struggling with school, struggling with bullies, puberty, but it was actually something more, chemical imbalance. And I know he was right, because shortly after I started taking antidepressants, I started to feel better. After a few weeks, we were slowly able to see that I was coming back around. I was starting to get the desire to do things again that I had previously enjoyed. I was able to go back to school, which was huge, and that was not easy. It's not like the depression was keeping me from school and all of a sudden this magic pill made me go back to school and I was fine. It was hard going back to school, but I was able to cope enough and learn some coping skills that I was able to do it, and then it got easier. It kind of expanded my comfort zone a little bit more so that I was able to go back to the things that I was doing before I really got this bad bout of depression. So again, if you are the parent of a child who you may suspect is dealing with depression, first and foremost, again, be your child's ambassador to mental health. Educate yourself and don't hesitate to take your kid to the doctor. It's okay to have a professional tell you your child, I don't think, is struggling with depression. Isn't that the best case scenario for them to just be going through a phase and some growing pains? But it's better to be proactive than to do nothing. Be proactive and have there be nothing wrong, and that's okay. But if you're not active in your child's mental health until they're older and mature enough to be the advocate for their own mental health, some damage can really be done. Studies have found that children who are diagnosed with depression and not treated have way higher likely chances of having mental health problems and depression later on and throughout life than those who get treatment early. So please keep that in mind, and I hope your family the very best if this is something that you're struggling with, and hang in there because it will get better. Thanks. Bye.